Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of A Cup of Coffee with TESOL Experts. Today I'm with Franco Cook. He is in Peru. Hi, Franco.
Hello, Diego. How are you?
I'm doing great, Franco. I understand that you were a participant in our developing an online teaching program certificate, and you developed like a wonderful course. Franco Cook is the academic coordinator of the corporate courses department at Euroidiomas Language Institute in Lima, Peru. I understand you have studied education, you have specialized in different things like distance and online learning, business management, administration, ELT. You have more than 10 years of teaching experience, and you've developed online courses, interactive materials, and some textbooks. That sounds very interesting. And you love teaching, but what you told me earlier today is that more than teaching, you like or you love seeing students learn and connecting with people. Is that right?
That's right.
And so, like I know you're a very engaging teacher, and you like to have fun with technology. And on the personal side, you have a wife and two little kids, so you love them, and you like to do things like road trips, wood carving, and guitar playing. All of that goes into today's question, which is how to share your passions.
Very good. Thank you. So, yes, as I was saying, I really love teaching. I love everything, but my true passion is seeing the students learn. It's connecting with a person and seeing the light in their eyes when they finally understand something and they can apply it. And so the other sectors of teaching, the paper correcting, the lesson planning, those are more work. And you might say I'm not as fond of them, but my passion is seeing the students learn. And my other passions, like you mentioned, traveling, going on road trips, and wood carving are also things I try to include when I interact with my students.
That's great, because actually today's question is how can we find and share our own passions and personalities in our online class? And there are many reasons why you may want to do that. One of them is student engagement. There are different types of engagement. We have cognitive engagement, we have affective engagement, we have behavioral engagement. And sometimes we don't pay a lot of attention to the affective engagement because we don't have time for that. You have to cover this amount of content, these many topics, and that is so important to really make sure that students feel connected, that they feel like they belong to the community, and that also will translate into better grades, better retention, all of that. And another reason to want to do this is for teacher engagement. You want to be happy doing what you are doing, right? You want to make your work a little bit more fun. And so we're going to be discussing this question today, and we have a wonderful guest who's going to help us. Who is this, Franco?
This is Dr. Dawn Bikowski. She's an associate professor at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. Her academic background is in applied linguistics and educational technology, with research focusing on educational technology, global teaching and learning, and academic and professional communication. International conferences and workshops, curriculum development projects, and program assessments have taken her to several countries all around the world. She's author of numerous journals and articles, and also co-author of the book Teaching with a Global Perspective: Practical Strategies from Course Design to Assessment, published by Routledge, and as well as being a co-creator and long-term development instructor, of the TESOL International Online Certificate Program, developing an online teaching program.
Well, let's join me in welcoming Dr. Dawn Bikowski. Hi, Dawn. It's good to see you.
Hello. Great to be with you both.
Yeah, well, before this video, Franco, Don, and I, we talked about like some strategies we wanted to share. And so number one, we have 4 ideas we want to share. Number one is identify your own passions and share them. And so what does that mean, Franco?
As I was saying, it's you have to be honest with yourself and know what is it you like, what is your passion. And in my case, it's seeing students learn. And in other aspects, I like traveling and guitar and woodworking, and so how do you share that with your students? Well, there's very simple ways. The first one is just sharing pictures, and there's many instances of class that you can share your pictures. The idea is that you make yourself relatable, so you include things that students can see and maybe relate, and maybe you have a common ground there with students. You can share pictures of yourself or of your background, of your environment during discussion boards at the start of the class, at the end of the class. And you can also record yourself doing something you like and share it with students. So not only does it have to be talking about yourself, you can also explain a class point while you're doing something that you like. For example, I can be grilling and explaining a grammatical point or a difficult pronunciation, and students are getting, but they're also seeing a little bit about myself and my passions. I love cooking, by the way.
Yeah, to add to that, I mean, those are important points. I try to think of it from my perspective as being producing content that is interesting to me, and also from the student's perspective, something that will help them be more interested to come into the online class space. It can be a barrier that students have to work a little harder to come to your online class, as opposed to a certain time or place where they physically show up. That's a barrier too. But in many ways, there are so many other things that we can all find to do instead of going into that online class where we know we should go. So to help people be interested, participants be interested in coming, one of the things I try to do is with my announcements, not just make them dry announcements, but try to share something about myself. So, and get them to share about themselves. So for example, one of a passion that is typically shared in this field is travel and learning about other cultures and things like that. So I like to post pictures of myself where I've gone, or other, maybe without me, but places that I've been. Maybe even let the participants guess where was this picture at, especially if it's in a region where I have participants in the class from, so they might see something that they recognize and can relate to. And then also you can use that as a point of discussion. Then people want to come and see pictures. People like pictures. So making them seem relatable and approachable can be a great way to share. And I enjoy it because I get to look through my pictures. So that's something that I enjoy as well.
I remember that in the course, in the developing an online teaching program, seeing, Don's and Linda's pictures and just reflecting and enjoying them. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and sometimes students feel like, oh, I don't like online teaching or online classes because I don't get to really share with anyone. I don't really get to connect with anyone, but it is possible really to build a very strong community of learners. And so that is great. Okay, strategy number 2 is identify the places where passions can be shared.
So what I've seen is a couple ways to approach that. Some people bring their passions in from the macro course development stage. So I've worked with participants here in the TESOL program, for example, who wanted to do not just English. Some people might have a general English course, but they wanted to match the course content to their passion. And they could do it whatever they wanted it on. So, for example, someone loved the environment, really passionate about the environment. So she focused her whole class on English for environmental causes so that someone could build their English and join the community of kind of a more activist environmental activism and understanding anything they would read related to the environment. Another participant focused her course on meditation and mental health and mindfulness. And so she was able to bring that passion into course development as well. What I've seen from a teacher trainer working with people who bring their passions in like that is it really propels them through the difficult phases of course development. Online course development can be grueling, exhausting. It can feel like you never get done. But if you yourself feel passionate about your topic, you have a much greater possibility of making it to the end and enjoying it. And the students can really feel that. So that's one area. The other area people can introduce their passions would be if you have a set curriculum, not all of us make a class just completely on our own, is, look for those opportunities within the curriculum. Maybe it's specific ways that you can tailor your assignment. Maybe it's specific activities that you can ask them to do. Maybe it's the way you develop your content. I mean, like Franco said, if you're doing something else like grilling and then talking about something, maybe you could do it with a grammar. The cooking can match with a grammar point. So if you allow yourself to think creatively and start with, what do I love? If I'm a person who loves gardening or cooking shows, and how can I sneak that into my content development or the tasks in a way that is authentic, it can't be like totally made up, then that can really be interesting for you. And the students feel that, and they feel a lot more interested as well.
And sometimes, as English teachers, we may have a little bit more flexibility to make those adjustments, because sometimes when teachers, they teach biology, math, I guess it's a little bit harder to find those spaces where we can insert those passions, either whether your own or your students' passion. So I love that.
Yeah, I'd really appreciate her sharing that, because I understand it better now, and I see how it's not necessary to renounce to your passions because you're teaching. You can actually include them in your curriculum. You can make it part. You don't have to divorce yourself from that. So I really appreciate that. And I also wanted to, my idea was more on the students' point of focusing on the students. What you can encourage them to do, maybe as a project, maybe for the end of class, is create a sort of a presentation about their own passions. Their, whether it's their country, their backgrounds, their culture, the food from their country, their own talents, their hobbies, and have some sort of fair. This is something that used to work very well in physical classrooms, and there's the homework we have to do to pass it into the virtual, but I'm sure it's going to be possible. But have them all present at the same time and be able to go and see their little presentations one at a time. I think that would work wonderfully.
And I think what you said could help to avoid things like plagiarism and like cheating, because sometimes that's a big issue in online learning but if students are asked to talk about themselves and what they love, I think they will be less likely to engage into these dishonest practices. And so that's a good point, Franco. Number 3 is be willing to make yourself vulnerable.
All right. So the word vulnerable can be a little bit overwhelming at first. It's scary. But what this means is putting yourself out there on the spotlight and showing yourself as a human, presenting yourself, being open about what you like, what your passions are, and, expecting to be maybe criticized. And there's a risk that you're taking. But by setting the example, and by correcting anything unwanted, you can show students that this is a safe environment where they can open up and share their passions, share their opinions, being respectful, of course, and mindful of others. So that's what it means to open yourself and be vulnerable.
And that's not always easy. Like I was giving a workshop to some professors in the UK, and one person said, when we talk about, putting yourself out there, he said that he didn't want to feel fake or be fake, and so that can be a little bit tricky sometimes. But when I teach online or when I'm a student, I definitely want to feel like there is another person, on the other side of the screen.
With myself, like we've already talked about, I try to think of my interests and passion and where there's some potential overlap. I'm going to have plenty of interests that nobody cares about, but where is there a potential overlap? And like I mentioned, mine is frequently with travel. And I myself, but sometimes we are overly critical with ourselves. Myself, I think sometimes, wow, if I show a lot of pictures of myself traveling and say where I've been, some people might perceive that as me showing off, like, oh, look at her, she's, showing off all these places she's been, and that might turn some people off. So I had to feel like I was willing to take that risk. I didn't want people to feel that way. I didn't mean it that way, but online environments, you have to be so careful. And at the same time, try to present things in a way to minimize that negative interpretation. So that's why I always encourage, where else have you been? I know you all have been places. Tell me about where you've been, and try to have a reason for the location or culture that I'm sharing, so that it's a potential connection with them. Like in my mind, I have a potential connection and I state where that is. So I think it's legitimate to feel nervous that people will misinterpret your attempts at connection. That's possible, but you can minimize those, occurrences, the possibility. And if you're authentic and if you have a heart, then people, in my experience, are willing to accept that you're really just trying to connect, and they appreciate it. So, but I think don't let that possibility of misinterpretation scare you away from the activity.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. And I think that's particularly true for, contexts where you work with students that come from different backgrounds or cultures or languages, because things may be understood differently. And so that is a very good point. And the last one we have, number 4, is involve others and ask them about their passions. because sometimes, it's easy to speak about yourself all the time and then you forget about involving others. So what do you think, Franco?
Well, yeah, that's the risk that you just said. I mean, sometimes you can be very enthusiastic, and when nobody's talking, well, you feel like, oh, it's an awkward silence. I'll fill it up. And you start talking about yourself and you get carried away. And that's not the point. First off, in a language class, you want students to produce a language. Second, you want them to share their own backgrounds, their own, passions and experiences. So you have to be careful with that risk, the risk of, falling into just talking about yourself. Create opportunities for students to share and make them feel comfortable doing so. That's what I think.
One of the things lately I've been trying to do to build on this whole picture thing and stuff like that, and a lot of times you just fall into these types of ideas, right? Like you don't always plan things, is I've noticed that a lot of students will find nice quotes and they'll share them like in the discussion areas or something, usually in the discussion, sometimes in announcements, they'll share these nice quotes. And so what I've been doing lately is I like my pictures. I like to look at my pictures. And so I'll find a picture that will match their quote and then I'll share that with everyone. And that's a nice way too, to show that you're really reading what they put out there and that you care, and you're kind of creating this joint, and then of course you announce, oh, I got this quote from so-and-so and I put it on this picture and I hope you all enjoy it, and share it with them. And then of course you can always use that picture and that quote again later. But that kind of collaborative passion sharing also seems to be a nice way. And then they start to do it with each other. That's the nice thing with a lot of these online classes is when you model certain behaviors, you don't even have to ask people to do it. They'll start to do it on their own, which is kind of exciting too.
Right. Like they all feel safe, and I think Franco talked about that, about creating the self environment for students to just be themselves, right? So, well, that was very helpful, very interesting. I love this conversation. Unfortunately, we have to close this video. So I wonder if you have any final thoughts or remarks you want to share with our audience.
I have a couple final remarks I did want to put out there, which is it's not necessarily just sharing your passion about content, but it can also be sharing your passion with more like if you're a person who really loves to take photos, or if you personally really like to make videos, then you can just do a lot more of those things with your class. In other words, maybe you're a person who really doesn't like to be in videos, but maybe you would be willing to learn how to take videos of your surroundings and you don't have to be in those videos. Like look at what you love to do as well and think about how you can pull that into the educational environment. Basically anything to help yourself along, I think, is a good thing. And you want to assign homework, you want to actually grade. That's always my policy. Don't assign stuff that's going to bore you to tears.
Right. True that. Franco.
Yeah, something I'd like to add is if you're willing to share your passion and you're putting people up on the spot to do the same, you have to be ready and willing to help them, to teach them. So if you're asking students to, record themselves, take pictures, post them online, post them on YouTube, you have to be ready to guide them through the process, be able to aid them when they need your help, show them what kind of programs you use to record, to edit, and how to finally upload. One thing that I did for I think first or second time, was uploading videos to YouTube with developing an online teaching program. And it was collaborative. Everybody was helping. We were sharing what programs we like to use, how to edit them, how to upload them, how to trim the videos, how to, just show parts of the video. So be ready to help and share. That's my point.
Well, thank you for all your ideas, Franco and Donnie. It was a pleasure to have you, and we'll see you next time.
Pleasure being here.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Diego.